It's 3 in the morning. You're just staring at the ceiling.
Mm,
The house is dead quiet. Doors are locked. Alarm is set. Phone's on silent. Everything is, by all objective measures, safe.
undeniably safe.
What your chest feels tight. There's this heavy, cold weight just sitting there. Your heart is doing that fluttery, anxious thing, and your mind is just racing.
Yeah, through a whole catalog of disasters that haven't happened yet.
Exactly. That's that visceral, completely exhausting experience of being always on alert.
That feeling, waiting for the other shoe to drop, even when you know you've checked there are no other shoes.
Yes. And that feeling is the anchor for what we're talking about today. We're dissecting anxiety, but maybe not in the usual way. We're not talking stress management or, wellness tips.
No.
We're wrestling with a much more fundamental question about, I guess, the architecture of the mind. Is this state, this chronic, buzzing, painful unease, is it a biological malfunction?
A glitch.
A glitch? Is the brain's threat detection system just broken? Has it gone rogue?
Or, and this is the idea that really challenges everything, is this unease not a bug, but a feature?
A feature?
Is it possible that what we call anxiety is actually the output of a highly sophisticated evolutionary prediction engine, one that's working exactly as it was designed to?
I have to say that's the tension. And I find myself leaning, really heavily toward the malfunction argument.
I get that.
When you just look at the suffering it causes, the paralysis, the lost sleep, it feels, it feels impossible to call that functional. It feels like a disorder of noise where there should be silence.
It's an intuitive reaction, for sure. But if we look at the evolutionary logic, the whole picture starts to shift. We have to start with what's called the smoke detector principle.
Right, the idea that false alarms are better than no alarms?
Exactly. Picture our ancestors, on the savannah. You're at a watering hole, you hear a rustle in the grass. Now, that noise is ambiguous.
Could be anything.
Could be a lion, could be the wind. And you have to make a split-second decision with, zero information.
So the brain has to place a bet?
It has to gamble. And the stakes are just wildly uneven. I mean, if you assume it's a lion and you run, but it was just the wind, what have you lost?
A few calories, you look a bit silly.
100 calories of energy, maybe?
Negligible cost.
But if you assume it's the wind and it turns out to be a lion,
It's catastrophic. You're gone.
game over. You lose your life. That's 100,000 calories lost in genetic terms.
So natural selection just shaped the brain to always, always fail on the side of caution.
We are the descendants of the anxious, of the hominids who treated every shadow, every rustle, as a predator. The chill ones? The ones who said, it's probably just the wind?
They didn't make it. They didn't pass on their genes.
Not for long. The system is designed for false alarms, because a false alarm is cheap, but a missed alarm is fatal.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. For a hunter-gatherer, I'm completely on board with that. But here's my problem.
Okay.
Applying that logic to the person lying awake at 3 a.m. today, it just doesn't track. We're not on the savannah. The rustle in the grass is an email from your boss with no subject line.
An abstract threat.
Exactly. It's a deadline. Or just this vague sense you said something wrong at a party. These are not lethal threats.
No, they're not lethal.
But the brain treats them with the exact same biochemical urgency as a predator. And that's where the whole adaptive argument falls apart for me. The smoke detector is going off because I burned toast.
Mm-hmm.
But the fire department is breaking down my door and flooding my house. Every single day. That's when a survival mechanism becomes a torture device.
You're drawing a line between the design and the environment, which is fair. But I think you might be missing how the brain processes those abstract threats.
Okay.
It's not just reacting, it's predicting. This gets us into the whole neuroscience of active inference.
This is the idea that we're not just, passively seeing the world, we're projecting a reality onto it.
You got it. The old model was that the brain was like a camera. Light comes in, sound comes in, brain processes it. But the new science says the brain is a prediction machine.
Right.
It's constantly generating these little simulations, these predictions about what will happen next. And it does that based on priors, all our past experiences, our beliefs.
So anxiety isn't a reaction to the world, it's a model of the world?
Yes, And anxiety is the brain's attempt to minimize prediction error, to minimize surprise.
The brain hates
It
surprises.
hates them. A surprise means you didn't see the lion coming. So, to stay safe, it creates a mental model of a dangerous world, just in case. If you expect danger, you won't be surprised by it.
But see, this is where the malfunction argument comes right back in. Because in anxious people, that model becomes incredibly rigid. It's what researchers call a hyper-precise threat prior.
A very strong belief.
It's an unshakable belief that danger's likely no matter what the evidence says.
The stormy night analogy is perfect for this.
Yeah, explain that.
Okay, so you're in bed. You hear the wind rattle the window. A non-anxious brain hears that, checks its priors, and predicts weather. Simple. Sound matches prediction, brain stays calm.
But the anxious brain hears the exact same sound.
The exact same rattle, and it predicts intruder. And that prior, that belief, is so strong it just overrides the simple likelihood of it being wind.
And it triggers the whole cascade. The heart rate spike, the adrenaline.
Right. And here's the kicker, and this is why I think you see it as a disorder.
Yes.
Even if you get up, you check the window, you see it's just the wind, the anxious brain doesn't always update. It holds on to that threat model.
It thinks, okay, not this time, but maybe next time. It refuses to accept the safety signal. It's a learning impairment.
You call it an impairment, I see it as context rigidity. But why doesn't it update? I think the answer is in the exploration-exploitation trade-off.
The behavioral trap.
That's it. If you believe your mailbox is full of, I don't know, angry letters from the IRS, what do?
You don't open the mailbox, you avoid it.
And because you avoid it,
I never see that it's actually just junk mail and coupons.
exactly. By avoiding the perceived threat, you starve your brain of the very data it needs to prove the hyper-precise threat prior is wrong. It creates this self-reinforcing pessimism.
It's a closed loop of error. That has to be the definition of pathology.
I mean,
If a system is designed to learn, and it gets into a state where it cannot learn, it's broken. It's not adapting anymore. It's hallucinating monsters and then hiding from them.
it is a trap, no question. But if we're going to call it broken, let's look at the hardware, the circuit board.
Okay,
Most people have heard of the amygdala, the fear center.
right. The amygdala is the low road, the jump scare. It's the physical reflex that happens before your thinking brain even catches up.
But anxiety, real anxiety, isn't a jump scare. It's a slow burn. The amygdala isn't the main player here. The villain, if you want one, is probably the BNST.
The bed nucleus of the stria terminalis. I like to call it the watchtower.
That's a great image, because while the amygdala handles immediate fear, the lion is here, the BNST handles sustained anxiety, uncertainty.
It's monitoring for the lion that might be here.
It's projecting into the future. It's the source of that what-if feeling.
And in chronic anxiety, the BNST is just stuck in the on position. It's like a guard in that watchtower who hasn't slept for days, just staring into the dark, seeing movement where there's none.
Mm-hmm.
And that keeps the body in the state of high-cost physiological arousal. It burns resources, it damages your immune system, it's terrible for your heart. That's a hardware failure.
Or is it just a very, very sensitive setting? I mean, the BNST's job is to find things that matter, right? To find the salient things. If yours is tuned high, you're just a high-fidelity threat detector.
But I'm detecting threats that don't exist. The cost-benefit analysis is totally skewed.
I want to shift gears for a second because we're talking about the brain like it's in a jar, but the anxiety, we feel it in our chest, in our gut.
Right. We have to talk about interoception.
The body talking back to the brain.
Exactly.
So much of anxiety is this mismatch between what the body is actually feeling and what the brain expects it to feel.
Give me an example.
Okay, say you drink a double espresso, or you just run up a flight of stairs. Your heart rate is going to spike.
A purely mechanical reaction.
Truly mechanical. But the anxious brain, which is already holding that hyper-precise threat prior, it detects that racing heart. It scans the body, feels that thumping, and it interprets it as confirmation of danger.
It thinks, my heart is racing, therefore I must be in danger.
Yes, and that interpretation dumps more adrenaline, which makes the heart race faster, and you get this feedback loop.
A false feedback loop. And there's a specific chemical glitch here that, for me, really cements the disorder view, the inverted U of norepinephrine.
This is about the thinking brain going offline.
Completely offline. Norepinephrine is the arousal chemical. You need a little bit to focus, that's the top of the U, but if you get too much, like during that anxiety spike, the prefrontal cortex, your rational brain, it shuts down,
The lights go out in the control room.
literally. The part of your brain that can go, hey, wait, you just have coffee, you aren't dying, gets locked out. The emotional brain takes over right when you need rationality the most. That is a design flaw.
It is.
You cannot convince me that losing your ability to think clearly in a crisis is an adaptive feature.
In our complex world, I agree. It feels maladaptive. But think back to the savannah. A lion charges you. You don't need to philosophize.
You need to run.
You need to run. Thinking is slow. Reaction is fast. The brain is sacrificing accuracy for speed.
But we're stuck with that sacrifice in a world that needs accuracy. And it gets even stranger because this whole sensitivity, this tuning, it might not even be ours.
You're talking about epigenetics, the inheritance of fear?
This is the part of the research that honestly feels like a ghost story.
It really does. The classic study, the one with the mice and the smell of cherry blossoms, acetophenone.
Right.
They trained mice to fear this specific smell by pairing it with a little electric shock. Standard conditioning. The mice learned, smell cherry blossoms, get scared.
But then,
They looked at the children, the F1 generation, and the grandchildren, the F2s. And these offspring, they'd never been shocked. They'd never even smelled cherry blossoms before.
and?
The moment the researchers introduced that specific scent, they panicked.
And it wasn't just behavior, was it?
No, that's the shocking part. They looked at their brains. The grandchildren were born with more neurons in their noses and larger processing areas in the brain, specifically for that one scent.
The trauma of the grandfather physically altered the neural architecture of his grandchildren?
It's the ultimate argument for anxiety as an adaptive system. It's a warning passed down through generations. Hey, watch out for this. Nature is trying to give you a head start.
But the map is wrong. That's the tragedy. I'm paying the biological bill for a trauma I never even experienced. I'm walking through a safe, modern world with a defensive system designed for a war zone I've never seen.
It's a mismatch.
It's a profound mismatch, and that's why it feels like a disorder. The mechanism is working, sure, but the result is disastrous for my quality of life.
Which I think brings us to where these two ideas can finally meet. We've been arguing these binary positions, broken or working. But maybe it's neither. Maybe it's just stuck.
How so?
Through the threat imminence continuum, the brain organizes its defense based on how close a threat is. First, you have the pre-encounter phase.
The worry phase, the scanning, that's the BNST.
Right. Is there something out there? Then you have the encounter phase. You actually see the threat. The amygdala kicks in. You freeze.
And then the circus strike phase, panic, fight or flight.
The insight is that chronic anxiety is just the massive overextension of that first phase.
The brain gets stuck in pre-encounter mode.
Exactly. The system is designed to scan, detect, and then resolve. But with our modern abstract never-ending threats, debt, career, social status, the resolution never comes. The brain just gets locked in scanning mode.
So it's a disorder of uncertainty learning.
I think that's a perfect way to put it.
The brain's trying to protect you from the unknown, but because it can't tolerate the uncertainty, it defaults to the only bet it thinks is safe. Assume the worst.
So if we accept that we're dealing with a prediction engine that's just stuck in a loop, how do we get it unstuck? We can't just tell it to calm down.
No, you can't logic your way out of a BNST loop. You have to speak the language of the machine. And the language of the machine is data.
You have to update the priors.
Yes. You have to challenge that hyper-precise threat prior. When you feel that certainty of danger, that tight chest at 3 a.m., you have to find a way to recognize it not as a prophecy, but as a prediction, a hypothesis.
And you have to go out and collect the data. You have to engage in that sampling.
Which is the hardest part. You have to stop avoiding the mailbox. You have to generate the non-disaster.
That's the only way to do it.
You have to open the email, feel that spike of fear, and then, and this is the most crucial part, sit with the feeling and let your brain register that you didn't die. You have to show it the safety signal.
You have to endure the false alarm to teach the smoke detector that burnt toast isn't a house fire.
It's not about silencing the alarm. It's about recalibrating it. You might be carrying the defensive system of an ancestor who really needed it. You can acknowledge that. Thank your brain for trying to protect you.
Right.
But then you have to gently and repeatedly show it that the war is over.
That feeling of being always on alert. It isn't a character flaw. It's not a sign you're broken. It is a biological mechanism working overtime, desperately trying to keep you safe in a world it thinks is volatile.
And the challenge, the real work, is teaching that incredible prediction machine that for this moment, right here, right now, it's safe to stand down.
And I think that's the most hopeful place we can end.
It is. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Join us next time on NeuroReality as we continue to explore the architecture of the mind.